Okay, so here I have taken some, I've got some pine up to 6-inch in diameter, different sizes, and then my first project was I'm going to make a queen size bed frame. And so I have the rough stock. This was all stuff that I pruned off my my land, and this was all dead, standing dead stock that is already dried. So the next step will be we're going to peel off the bark and cut the appropriate pieces and so on. But this is what the rough stock looked like. I went and actually had to carry these about 1/4 mile from on my snowshoes to get them. But because they're dry, they weren't relatively light as compared to green logs. So I just want to give you a shot, show you what I started with, and then as the video progresses and how to make a rustic pine bed, you'll see it. You'll see how it progresses from the rough stock to the finished product. Okay, what we're doing now is I'm going to use a draw knife. I have a machete, kind of the same thing. Let me modify this to, right now this bark is so dry that it's coming right off, no problem. Peeling like you would a carrot, just it's that dry. So makes my job easier. And the beautiful pine underneath there. This is one of the head posts that I'm making right now. And so I take the bark off. Just a little update. You can see that I'm working on one of the bed rails. You can see the pieces I made over here. And I've started putting the on the end. So the tenons, around tenons on the end on some of them. I'm actually just using my we already had on hand. They have all these tenon makers, but I just use just a hole cutter that I've used for plumbing before, and it's a 2 1/8, I think, bit on my 1/2-inch drill, and I'll show you that how I do it in a minute. But anyway, you can see on the floor all the shavings that I've been busy for a couple days. And I'm almost there. I've just got to make the few more components and be ready to assemble. So I've used a machete, and I've also used this Fisker's tool. It's called their little very sharp. In fact, you have to be careful with it. These tips will cut you, as I found out the hard way. It's a 9-inch chopping machete by Fisker's, and I've used this, and I've also, as I mentioned before, I've used this. The bigger logs, the machete from Ontario Knife Works real good. And the smaller logs, it seems that depending on how hard the bark is on there too. Okay, so here we are. What I had to do is I made this. I took a piece of plywood, and since the bedposts here at the headboard are 6 inches in diameter approximately, I just got a piece of plywood big enough. Don't have to be 1/2 inch, 3/4, whatever you have. Went on my table saw, and I divided every measurements in half, and then I made cuts for my chalk line. And then the next step, so I'll show you, so I go down the end. You can see the holes are drilled, but I'll show you how I did it. What I did is I come in here, and I found the center of this post by measuring both in two directions, and on the post. Which is unlike a board, you don't have a reference, a square reference, so you use this template or this jig, I guess I call it. So I measured. First, I found the face that I wanted here. As you can see, that this is my face that I stood the post up and see what I liked going towards the headboard and what I like going on the outside of the opposite of the headboard. And then what I did is I found the center line here. I just wherever I liked it, because the first one is not as critical as the second line, and I snapped a chalk line. Snap. That gave me a center line, and then at 9 inches on center and 44 on center here, I drilled with my 1 3/4 Forstner bit my holes. And the rails are set at 5 and 13 inches on center. You can see that's what I did. 5 inch and 13 inches. I drilled those holes 2.5 inches deep with a 1 3/4 Forstner bit. And then I got to make the ends here. I'm using I'm using a Lennox. This is it's got a sawtooth here. I really love this. Old school that I used to use, all the little teeth. But this is actually a carbide tip, one tip. It's hollowed out here. It allows all the sawdust out. It really drills fast, and I used a 2 1/8 Lennox, or 54 millimeter. Matches up where, see, everybody has a different standard of size, but if you use a Lennox, it has it fits perfectly with the 1 3/4 Forstner bit made from Irwin, IRWIN. Excellent Forstner bit. You pay a little bit more, but it's worth every penny, and so is this. And then I make my ends here on the end of the my tenon. And so once I make the tenon and I Forstner bit, this is where I'm starting to join together and make the headboard. And I'll show you how to do that as we get there. Okay, there's the headboard that's been made, and you can see down in here for the rails. It's going to attach the footboard. So the headboard's done, and pretty much a little sanding, and because everything's got to be finished. And then now that shows you the results. Now I'm going to show you, as I set the foot rail, how it's done. I've got my two posts that are 36 inches. I've got my rails. They're not cut to length yet, and I'm just sizing it up, taking a look at it, and getting a feel for what I have for stock and how I'm going to put it together. So right now I'm in the middle of making a tenon for this piece of the foot rail. So what we do is we come in here, I come to the workmate. I've already taken my plug saw, as I probably saw before, but it's my Lennox, and it makes a 2 1/8 according to their sizing, and it has this carbide tip on it. It cuts really fast, so love it. Great tool. $20. Can't beat it. Then I go around my Sawzall Well, sometimes a handsaw. Depending on what I'm going to move it, I put a smaller blade on it. My sawzall so that I can just faster, and I have to cut the excess off. Once I make that, so here's what I'm doing now. Cut the excess off, I'm going to show you the plug.
Last week when John Rose spoke about his view of the outlook.
And then I just take a chisel.
And the interesting thing is that last week that phrase had a very different meaning than it has today.
And I just loosen it up. Usually hit it for 4 places. That shows me how close I am to where the much more I have to cut. And sometimes I just like taking a handsaw and coming in there instead of that. This prevents you from cutting too much. There's all kinds of different hand saws I've got. I use this one sometimes. And what I do is go around this until they fall off. Then I know I've cut far enough. This is a 4-inch hole saw. I just simply swap out one side for another. Now I just screw this on. They're interchangeable for any. This is my guide. Without that guide, this thing will go all over the place and cut you, and could cut you. So I just pick what I want to look at. Basically, what I'm trying to do is I'm beveling this out. So when it goes up against the post, that it bevels around the log here this way. So that's what I'm making. So I just take a look. Since 1953. More information at mattfound.org. This is NPR. Then I go the opposite, 180. Just make sure I'm lined up here. Clamp down on it. I'll do the same thing on this side.
I'm Lisa Mullins. PRI's The World. French government to leave Tokyo as Japan across Arab countries. We bring you the latest on PRI's The World.
Okay. I take my chisel. And I chisel this out.
The music director at NPN, and I've invited tenor John McVeigh and conductor Robert Wood. This Friday morning's cultural organization.
Okay, so we've taken our 4-inch hole saw. This is how we taper going around our logs. And I just finished cutting both sides with the hole saw. So you see I came down here just so I don't cut through the tenon, just below it, scratch the surface. Now I'm going to turn this up and take out the rest of the wood here with a saw and a chisel. Saw here, just kind of do a 45 down on it here, just below the surface,